As you know, we spoke quite a bit last week about those hearings with the former Twitter executives and their decisions to silence the Hunter Biden laptop story and all the ramifications. We want to dive deep into that and exactly what the legal ramifications might be with our friend Kash Patel. Of course, Kash Patel used to work in the Justice Department. He was with Devin Nunes on the House Intelligence Committee and then worked in the Pentagon under President Trump as well. He's an important guy, and more importantly, he knows the law. Kash, thanks for joining us.
Larry, thanks so much for having me back on the show.
So a couple of things stuck out to me. First, we know that there was an FEC complaint about Twitter's decision to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story. The reason it was under the FEC, Kash, that's the Federal Elections Commission, is that basically this was seen as a giant in-kind contribution to the Biden campaign, right? This was election meddling.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. So it sort of analogizes to the situation where Hillary Clinton, later years after Russiagate, got hit with an FEC fine for her involvement in the Russiagate dossier production and payment. So if you sort of put those two on parallel tracks, you can see why they are taking this approach. I'm glad that the committees are taking a widespread approach as to what they can use under the laws in government and not just a narrow focus, say,
right,
at one institution or not. So it's a good widespread approach.
Of course, it's remarkable. Think about what Hillary Clinton did with the Russian collusion hoax, paying for the dossier. It was all opposition research. It was all a lie. Put it out there. Worst thing that happened was 6 years later, she got hit with a fine. Had she won the election, it would have been, so what? Who cares? I won, right? So, I mean, it's not like the FEC has a lot of teeth. However, this is interesting. This guy, Yoel Roth, he was the executive who made the decision. He said in his sworn testimony to the Federal Elections Commission that they censored this Hunter Biden laptop story because the FBI warned them there would be a Russian hack and leak operation involving Hunter Biden. So they said, oh, here it is. The FBI warned us. We got to do what the FBI said because we're going to get in trouble with the FBI. Now, under oath last week, he said, oh, no. I didn't mean the FBI told me about this. Kash, they're lying. He's either lying under oath with the FEC or he's lying under oath to Congress last week.
Yeah, and look, listen, as the former chief investigator for Russiagate who did 70 of these interviews, this guy has the worst legal team I've ever seen. You never put a witness in front of the United States Congress under oath to answer questions he can't answer or doesn't know how to answer. And you're right. He either lied to government officials or he lied under oath. Either one of those, Larry, is a federal felony. And so I'm glad we were able to lock in some testimony. The approach they've taken, I know there's been some commentary on it, but I'm glad they put these 3-4 people up on blast because it ties the FBI and DOJ directly to the private sector, big tech companies. James Baker, namely, right? The guy that wrote the Russiagate FISA, then became general counsel at Twitter and has been caught lying multiple times. Now they got to get these guys into depositions that we call TIs, transcribed interviews, for hours and hours on end under oath to scrutinize their every action. It's a good first step.
This is exactly where I was going next. The first guy on that panel, James Baker, and you sort of alluded to him, but let's drill down a little bit further because it almost seemed like every question he was asked. This is a guy who used to work at the FBI. He was a lawyer. He left in 2019, went to Twitter just in time for the 2020 election. And Kash, he claimed that, nobody at the FBI ever said anything to me about a Hunter Biden story. I was just using my own judgment. That defies credulity. Why would the FBI be talking to every other employee at Twitter, every other executive at Twitter about Hunter Biden, but the one guy who probably had some working knowledge of the FBI, James Baker, nope, never came up?
No, this is the guy that was operating the periscope into the conspiracy between FBI and Twitter. He wasn't just some lawyer. He was the #1 lawyer at FBI. He wrote the Russiagate FISA. He signed off on that FISA. And then he became the #2 lawyer at Twitter. And as you alluded to earlier, it's not like the FBI just called him and said, hey, would you do this? They had an 80-person election task force meeting weekly with their former boss, James Baker, at Twitter, and then saying, hey, we need to censor these things involving not just Hunter Biden's laptop, but so many other election-related matters. And for James Baker to come in under oath, I mean, I've said this before on Truth Social, this guy has made an industry out of lying to Congress since getting fired from the FBI as a result of our investigation. So I'm very happy they put him on blast for people to know that the FBI and big tech are in bed together, literally. And now we need to find out how many millions of dollars were paid by the FBI to big tech. I guarantee you we're going to find dozens of contracts and then we're going to get the documentation, hopefully from the Weaponization Committee, to show it.
So now this is, it's such a nice handshake too with Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan did a lot of the questioning of James Baker, as I'm sure you saw, Kash. He's on this oversight committee, but he's also the chairman of Judiciary and chairman of the subcommittee about the weaponization of the federal government, most specifically the FBI. This is seamless, isn't it? Jordan's basically putting together his agenda after this meeting. This is not a one-off. They're building a case, it looks like.
No, and I think that's the most important takeaway, Larry, for the American people who want accountability immediately. I do too, and you do too, but you have to build it in a methodical fashion. And I know Jim Jordan personally, as you do. And I actually used to work for him. Most people don't know that.
Oh, yeah?
He's a very methodical man. He is going to take the sworn testimony that you saw James Baker give, and I bet you dollars for donuts, put it in a letter and send it to DOJ and FBI and Twitter and say, your former counsel said this under oath. Now I want the documents related to X, Y, and Z. I also want the banking records. I want to know how much Twitter was paid from the FBI. And I want to know why the FBI allowed government-funded money to create a task force to rig a presidential election. Once you tie all those threads together, then you have an investigation that is very meaningful and very powerful. And I think Jim Jordan has the plan to release it all publicly, which is the ultimate last step.
Kash, what do you say to people who will say, well, whoa, everybody, you're getting all upset about this, but this was during the Trump administration with the Trump Attorney General and Trump-appointed Deputy Attorney Generals and the Trump-appointed FBI Director. I mean, there couldn't have been a plan to stop Joe Biden or stop Donald Trump because these were all Trump's guys.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that, and look, even President Trump has said it publicly. He just picked some of the wrong people and put too much faith in them. And, we can Monday morning quarterback this thing all day. But the reality is now, whether Trump put him in or somebody else put him in, they violated the law. They violated their oaths of office because they thought they could subvert the commander-in-chief's policy direction that was outlined. And we caught them lying. It's not like we're talking about grand conspiracies here. We literally caught the FBI lying to a federal court multiple times. We caught the FBI rigging elections multiple times. Hunter Biden's laptop, where you talk about the Jan 6 stuff, or whether you talk about anything related to Biden and classified documentation. These investigations were known to the FBI and were never put out to the public with the specific intention of not disclosing it before a consequential election in Congress for the presidency.
Well, and we know from multiple polls done after the fact that there's something like 30% of voters who voted for Joe Biden have said, had they known about the Hunter Biden laptop story, their vote would have been different. Which brings me to this moment. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she was very upset that this hearing was happening at all. And during her diatribe about what a waste of time it was, she said, we could be talking about voting rights. We could be talking about civil rights. Kash Patel, I could be wrong, but I think this issue is a civil rights issue. I think it is a voting rights issue, isn't it?
Larry, I could not think of a more fundamentally consequential issue to our constitutional republic than actually safeguarding and rooting out fraud and crime from the election process that undergirds our democracy. I don't know what she's talking about, except she wants the next headline. She'll start yelling about race and gender and all this other stuff. But when you literally rig a presidential election, and all you have to do is spin the tables, Larry, what if the Republican administration or the MAGA movement went in there and said, oh, we're going to buy the FBI, then we're going to force them to get in bed with Twitter, and we're going to block the AOCs of the world from getting their message out before consequential elections, or any elections for that matter? What do you think they would be doing? They would literally be anarchy. We would have the Antifa movement all over that we had in the summer, burning down gas stations and police departments. They'd be doing that tenfold.
I don't know, Kash. I mean, you're pretty critical of the congresswoman from New York, and I gotta call you on this. Are you sure you don't want to date her?
Listen, as a man of color myself and a minority, I never want her to stop talking. She is the greatest mouthpiece the conservative movement can ever ask for, because every time she goes to the podium, she says things that I can't even fathom a human being would say. And it's the biggest collection apparatus we have.
All right. Kash Patel claiming here that he's a man of color, but I've seen the websites that confirm that you are in fact a white supremacist. So I don't know. We'll have to get into that. We actually have more to discuss with Kash Patel coming up in just a moment, a whole lot more. So keep it here. It's the Salem News Channel, and you're watching O'Connor Tonight.